The thing about humans, Crix thought as he watched Captain Jenna Torres methodically disassemble her plasma rifle for the third time that hour, is that they never stop moving. Even when they are sitting perfectly still, something inside them is always ticking, always planning, always preparing for the next impossible thing they are about to attempt. You know, Crix said, his mandibles clicking in what passed for amusement among his species. Most creatures would be paralyzed with terror right about now. We are about to break into the most heavily fortified structure in the galaxy, steal something that doesn't technically exist, and somehow escape with our lives intact. Jenna didn't look up from her weapon. Click, snap, whir. The rifle came back together with practiced efficiency. Most creatures aren't stupid enough to get their crew captured by the Dominion Council in the first place. Ouch! Crix's secondary eyes swiveled to regard the human captain. That stings, Torres. Really cuts deep. Good. Maybe next time you will think twice before taking a job from someone who screams obvious trap in 17 different languages. The cargo hold of their ship, the Broken Promise, hummed with the quiet tension that always preceded their more suicidal ventures. 3 days ago, they'd been a crew of 5. Now they were 4, and if they didn't pull off the heist of the century within the next 18 hours, they'd be 3. Zara, their demolitions expert, and the closest thing Jenna had to his sister, was currently enjoying the hospitality of a Dominion detention facility. The kind of place where asking for a lawyer got you a free lobotomy. All right, people. Jenna stood, her rifle secured across her back. Final briefing. We all know the stakes, so let's make sure we don't mess this up. Marcus Webb, their pilot and certified lunatic, looked up from his tactical display. Define mess this up, because if we're talking about the usual level of catastrophic failure, I have got contingency plans. If we're talking about the kind of failure that gets us vaporized on a molecular level, well, he grinned. I've got those too. Comforting, muttered Yuki Tanaka, their tech specialist. She was hunched over a collection of devices that looked like they'd been assembled by a particularly creative child with access to military hardware. I have managed to slice together a signal jammer that should give us maybe 20 minutes of invisibility to their sensors. Maybe. Jenna raised an eyebrow. Look, I'm good, but I'm not miracle worker good. The Dominion's headquarters has security protocols that make paranoid dictators look trusting. We're talking about a facility that's essentially a small moon converted into the galaxy's most secure prison/military command center. Crix pulled up the holographic blueprint they'd managed to acquire through channels that were technically legal in some sectors of space. The Meridian Station hung in the void like a mechanical tumor, bristling with weapons emplacements and sensor arrays. The good news, he said, is that their security is designed to keep people in, not out. The bad news is that once we are inside, getting out becomes exponentially more difficult. That's where the fun begins, Marcus said, cracking his knuckles. I have plotted 17 different escape routes, 12 of which involve flying through debris fields at speeds that would make sane pilots weep. And the other 5? Jenna asked. Those involve ramming things. I really hope we don't have to use those. Yuki looked up from her equipment. The detention levels are buried deep in the station's core. We're talking about penetrating 47 levels of security, each one progressively more lethal than the last. The Dominion doesn't just kill intruders. They make examples of them. Right? Jenna said, checking her chronometer. Here's the plan. We dock at the commercial bay using Marcus's forged credentials. Yuki, you will need to slice into their internal network and create a distraction in the upper levels. Something big enough to draw security away from the detention blocks. I'm thinking a massive system failure in their waste processing units, Yuki said with a wicked grin. Nothing gets security moving faster than the threat of sewage backup in the command levels. Gross, but effective, Marcus nodded approvingly. I like it. Crix's mandibles clicked again. While they're dealing with that delightful crisis, Jenna and I will infiltrate the detention levels. We locate Zara, extract her, and rendezvous at docking bay 7. Sounds simple when you say it like that, Jenna said. Unfortunately, the Dominion didn't build their reputation on being easy to rob. The Broken Promise shuddered slightly as they dropped out of hyperspace. Through the main viewport, Meridian Station hung against the star field like a metallic spider, its surface crawling with defensive turrets and patrol craft. "Well," Marcus said, settling into the pilot's seat, "there's our target. Anyone else getting that special feeling you get right before everything goes horribly wrong?" "Every time," Jenna replied. "That's how you know you are still alive." The approach to the commercial docking bay was a masterclass in control terror. Marcus piloted the Broken Promise through a maze of patrol routes and scanner sweeps, his fingers dancing across the controls with the kind of precision that came from years of not quite getting killed. "Incoming transmission," Yuki announced. "Dominion Traffic Control wants to know our business. Tell them we are here to deliver medical supplies to the station's infirmary," Jenna said. "The forged manifest should hold up to casual inspection." "Define casual," Crix muttered. "The kind that doesn't involve cavity searches or molecular analysis," Marcus replied. "Beyond that, we are improvising." The docking procedure took exactly 17 minutes and 32 seconds. Jenna knew because she'd been counting, the way she always did when death was a possibility. It helped keep her focused. "Docking successful," Marcus announced. "We are now officially inside the belly of the beast." "Wonderful," Crix said, checking his equipment one final time. "I have always wanted to tour a facility designed by sadistic architects with unlimited budgets." They moved through the station's corridors with the kind of casual confidence that suggested they absolutely belonged there. Jenna had learned long ago that the secret to infiltration wasn't stealth, it was attitude. Act like you're supposed to be somewhere, and most people will assume you are. The commercial levels of Meridian Station were a study in sterile efficiency. Everything was clean, white, and designed to make visitors feel simultaneously welcomed and completely monitored. Security cameras tracked their movement with mechanical precision, but Yuki's jammers kept their biometric signatures scrambled. "Detention levels are 14 floors down," Crix whispered as they approached a maintenance access shaft. "According to the blueprints, we can reach them through the service tunnels." "According to the blueprints," Jenna replied. "This should be easy. I have learned not to trust things that should be easy." The service tunnels were a different world entirely. Gone were the clean white walls and subtle lighting. Here, the station's mechanical heart was exposed, pipes and conduits running in every direction like metallic arteries. The air was thick with the smell of recycled atmosphere and industrial lubricants. "Charming," Crix observed, his secondary eyes scanning for threats. "Nothing says impenetrable fortress like tunnels that smell like a mechanic's armpit." They moved through the labyrinthine passages with practiced stealth, Jenna's military training, and Crix's natural predator instincts, making them nearly invisible to the automated security systems. The deeper they went, the more the station's true nature revealed itself. "Motion sensors ahead," Jenna whispered, raising her hand to signal a halt. 3 of them overlapping fields. "I see them," Crix replied, his mandibles working silently. "Wait here." He moved forward with the fluid grace of his species, his form seeming to flow around the sensor beams like liquid shadow. In another life, before he'd become a smuggler, Crix had been a hunter on his homeworld. Some instincts never fade. "Clear," he signaled, "but we are running out of time. Yuki's distraction won't last forever." They reached the detention levels just as alarms began wailing throughout the station. Yuki's waste processing catastrophe had apparently exceeded expectations. "Overachiever," Jenna muttered, but she was smiling. "Now we just need to find Zara and get out before someone realizes what's really happening." The detention block was a maze of security checkpoints and holding cells, each one more forbidding than the last. Automated turrets tracked their movement, but Yuki's jammers kept them from acquiring target locks. "Cell Block 7, Crix said, reading from a scanner. "That's where they're holding her." They moved through corridors lined with cells containing the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. Pirates, terrorists, political prisoners, and worse. The Dominion didn't discriminate when it came to who they locked away. There, Jenna pointed to a cell at the end of the corridor. "That's her." Zara looked up as they approached, her face breaking into a grin that was equal parts relief and anticipation. "About time. I was starting to think you'd forgotten about me." Never, Jenna said, working on the cell's electronic lock. Though I was considering leaving you here until after the new year. Teach you a lesson about accepting jobs from obviously untrustworthy clients. Fair point, Zara admitted. But in my defense, the money was really good. The lock clicked open, and Zara stepped out of her cell with the kind of casual confidence that suggested 3 days in Dominion custody hadn't dampened her spirits in the slightest. So, she said, stretching muscles that had been cramped in the small cell, what's the exit strategy? Please tell me it involves explosions. It might, Jenna replied. Depends on how cooperative the universe feels like being. That was when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in hellish red. The station's speakers crackled to life with an announcement that made Jenna's blood freeze. Attention all security personnel. We have a code black situation in Detention Block 7. All units respond immediately. Lethal force is authorized. Well, Crick said, his mandibles clicking rapidly. That's not good. Define not good, Zara said, checking her weapons. Because I'm detecting multiple levels of not good in that announcement. The sound of heavy boots echoed through the corridors, getting closer with each passing second. Jenna's mind raced through possibilities, discarding plan after plan as circumstances shifted around them. This way, she said, pointing toward a maintenance hatch. We go up. Up. Crix's secondary eyes swiveled to stare at her. Up is toward the heavily armed security forces who want to kill us. Exactly, Jenna replied, pulling the hatch open. They will expect us to go down toward the docking bays. We go up, circle around through the upper levels, and come back down somewhere else. That's either brilliant or completely insane, Zara observed. With our luck, Crix muttered, it's probably both. They climbed through the maintenance shaft as the sounds of pursuit grew louder below them. The station's security forces were efficient, but they were also predictable. Humans, Jenna had learned, had a distinct advantage when it came to being unpredictable. Command levels, she said as they emerged into another corridor. This is where the station's senior officers work. If we can reach the communication center, we might be able to coordinate with Marcus and Yuki. Assuming they're still alive, Crix pointed out. They are alive, Jenna said with absolute certainty. Marcus is too stubborn to die, and Yuki is too smart. The command levels were a stark contrast to the detention blocks. Here, everything was designed to impress. Polished floors, decorative lighting, and the kind of furniture that suggested the Dominion spared no expense when it came to making their officers comfortable. Motion sensors, Zara whispered, pointing to nearly invisible devices mounted in the ceiling. These ones look military-grade. They are, Jenna confirmed. Fortunately, they're also predictable. She pulled a small device from her belt, a gift from Yuki that she'd been saving for a special occasion. The signal scrambler activated with a soft hum, and the motion sensors went dark. Useful, Crix observed. How long will it last? 10 minutes, Jenna replied. Maybe 15 if we are lucky. They moved through the command levels like ghosts, avoiding the occasional patrol and staying clear of the main corridors. The deeper they went, the more obvious it became that they were walking through the nerve center of the galaxy's most powerful military organization. Communication Center. Zara pointed to a door marked with symbols that probably meant something appropriately intimidating in Dominion script. That's our target. Jenna was about to respond when the floor exploded. The explosion sent them tumbling through smoke and debris, emergency klaxons wailing like banshees. Through the chaos, Jenna caught a glimpse of Dominion shock troopers rappelling through the hole in the floor, their armor gleaming in the emergency lighting. Well, Zara coughed, spitting dust, that's new. They blew their own floor, Crix observed, his mandibles twitching with what might have been admiration. These people really don't mess around. Jenna rolled behind a decorative pillar that had somehow survived the blast. Communication Center is 20 meters away. We need to reach Marcus and Yuki before this place turns into a shooting gallery. The first plasma bolt sizzled past her ear, leaving a smoking crater in the wall behind her. The Dominion troopers had excellent aim, which was unfortunate for everyone except the troopers. Suppressing fire. Jenna shouted, leaning around her cover to return shots. Her rifle spat coherent energy, forcing the troopers to duck behind their own improvised barriers. Zara had found a chunk of rubble that provided adequate cover. I count 8 hostiles, military-grade equipment, and very bad attitudes. The bad attitudes are what worry me most, Crix replied, his own weapon adding to the cacophony. I can deal with military equipment, but bad attitudes are much harder to negotiate with. The firefight lasted exactly 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Jenna knew because she was still counting, even as plasma bolts turned the air around them into a lethal light show. The Dominion troopers were good, but they were fighting humans, and humans had spent millennia perfecting the art of surviving impossible odds through sheer bloody-mindedness. Grenades! Zara shouted, pulling 2 explosive devices from her belt. Everyone down. The twin explosions sent more debris flying, but when the smoke cleared, the immediate threat had been neutralized. The troopers were either unconscious or had retreated to regroup. That won't hold them for long, Jenna said, checking her ammunition. They will be back with reinforcements. They sprinted toward the communication center, their boots crunching on debris. The door was locked, naturally, but Zara had always been gifted with explosives. Stand back, she said, attaching a small charge to the locking mechanism. This might sting a little. The door disappeared in a flash of light and twisted metal. Beyond it, the communication center hummed with activity, banks of monitors displaying tactical information from across the station. Marcus, Jenna spoke into her comm unit. Please tell me you are still breathing. Static answered her for a moment. Then Marcus's voice crackled through. Breathing, flying, and generally having the time of my life. Though I should mention that half the Dominion fleet is currently shooting at me. Half? Crix's secondary eyes widened. That seems excessive. I may have accidentally destroyed a few patrol ships while you were playing hide and seek, Marcus replied. In my defense, they shot first. Yuki's voice joined the conversation. I'm tracking your position. The docking bay is compromised, but I have identified an alternative extraction point. Emergency airlock 17, level 12. That's 43 levels up from here. Jenna calculated quickly. How exactly do you propose we get there without being vaporized? I'm working on that, Yuki replied. Give me 30 seconds to hack into the station's transportation system. Through the communication center's windows, Jenna could see the void of space beyond. Somewhere out there, Marcus was playing a deadly game of tag with ships that could reduce the broken promise to component atoms. Somewhere else, Yuki was performing electronic miracles that would have made legendary hackers weep with envy. Got it. Yuki's voice was triumphant. I have accessed the station's internal transport network. There's a cargo elevator that runs directly from the command levels to the emergency systems on level 12. Cargo elevator. Zara raised an eyebrow. That sounds suspiciously convenient. It's not convenient, Yuki replied. It's surrounded by automated defense systems, protected by military-grade encryption, and currently occupied by a squad of Dominion Marines who are very unhappy about recent events. Ah, Crix said, there's the catch. The journey to the cargo elevator was a running battle through corridors that had suddenly become very crowded with people who wanted to kill them. The Dominion had apparently decided that subtlety was overrated and had deployed everything short of orbital bombardment to stop their escape. Left, Jenna shouted, diving around a corner as plasma fire turned the air behind her in a superheated death. Next corridor. They moved through the station like a force of nature, leaving chaos in their wake. Jenna's military training, Zara's demolitions expertise, and Crix's predatory instincts combined into something that the Dominion security protocols hadn't been designed to handle. There, Crix pointed to a massive doorway marked with symbols that probably meant something like authorized personnel only or trespassers will be atomized. That's our elevator. The doorway was guarded by 6 Dominion Marines in full combat armor, their weapons trained on the corridor. They looked like they'd been expecting company. Well, Zara said, studying the situation, this is going to be interesting. Define interesting, Jenna replied, checking her remaining ammunition. The kind that involve a lot of running, shooting, and praying to whatever deities specialize in keeping stupid people alive. The assault on the elevator was a masterpiece of controlled chaos. Jenna went right, Crix went left, and Zara went straight up the middle with enough explosive charges to level a small building. The Marines were skilled, but they were fighting opponents who had spent years perfecting the art of surviving encounters that should have killed them. Elevators secure, Zara announced, stepping over the remains of what had once been a very solid door. Though I should mention that it's currently making some concerning noises. The elevator car was the size of a small warehouse, designed to move massive cargo containers between the station's levels. It was also, Jenna noticed, riddled with plasma burns and making the kind of mechanical sounds that suggested it might not complete its journey. Up, she shouted, hitting the control panel. Emergency level 12. The elevator lurched into motion with a grinding noise that made Crix's mandibles click nervously. That doesn't sound healthy. Neither does staying here, Jenna replied as more Dominion forces converged on their position. Sometimes you have to choose between bad options and worse options. The ascent through the station's levels was a nightmare of mechanical failure and hostile fire. The elevator car shuddered and sparked as enemy weapons found their mark, while Jenna, Zara, and Crix returned fire through the increasingly damaged walls. Level 8, Zara announced, reading the indicator panel. We are almost there. That was when the elevator cable snapped. The car plummeted 3 levels before the emergency brakes engaged with a scream of tortured metal. They slammed into the floor with enough force to rattle teeth and crack bones. Everyone alive? Jenna asked, tasting blood. Define alive. Crix groaned, his secondary eyes spinning in different directions. Because I'm pretty sure I just experienced my 9th life flashing before my eyes. Emergency stairs. Zara pointed to a maintenance hatch in the elevator ceiling. We climb. The emergency stairwell was a vertical shaft that seemed to stretch to infinity. They climbed through a maze of pipes and conduits, their hands slipping on metal rungs that were slick with condensation and industrial lubricants. Level 12, Jenna announced, reaching the access hatch. Finally, the emergency airlock was a small chamber designed for maintenance access to the station's outer hull. It was also, Jenna noted with relief, currently unoccupied by hostile forces. Marcus, she spoke in her comm unit. We are at the extraction point. I see you. Marcus's voice was tight with concentration. Bringing the promise around now, but I should warn you that we are about to have company. Through the airlock's small window, Jenna could see the broken promise approaching through a storm of plasma fire. Behind it, 3 Dominion patrol ships were closing fast, their weapons charging for what would certainly be a killing blow. Yuki, Jenna called. Please tell me you have one more miracle in your bag of tricks. Working on it. Yuki's voice was barely audible over the sound of weapons fire. I'm trying to hack into the patrol ship's navigation systems, but their encryption is military grade. How long? Jenna asked. 30 seconds, maybe less. The broken promise docked with the airlock just as the patrol ships opened fire. The small smuggling vessel shuddered under the impact, but Marcus's piloting skills kept them from being instantly vaporized. Everyone aboard, he shouted. We are leaving now. They tumbled through the airlock as the station's defensive systems finally acquired target locks on their ship. The broken promise pulled away from Meridian Station just as automated turrets began tracking their movement. Yuki, Jenna called. Now would be good. Got it. Yuki's voice was triumphant, sending navigation virus to all 3 patrol ships. The pursuing vessels suddenly began flying in random directions, their pilots struggling with navigation systems that had decided up was down and left was inside out. One of them narrowly avoided colliding with the station's main docking bay. Hyperspace, Marcus announced. Hold on to something. The stars stretched into lines of light as the broken promise jumped to hyperspace, leaving Meridian Station and its confused defenders far behind. In the cargo hold, Jenna finally allowed herself to breathe. Well, she said, looking around at her crew, that was unnecessarily exciting. Unnecessarily? Zara raised an eyebrow. We just broke into the most secure facility in the galaxy, rescued a crew member, and escaped with our lives. I'd say that was exactly the right amount of exciting. Crix was examining his equipment, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. The humans have a saying, don't they? Something about the best plans being the ones you survive. Close enough, Jenna replied. Though I think the actual saying is about no plan surviving contact with the enemy. In our case, Marcus called from the cockpit. The enemy didn't survive contact with our plan. They were 3 days out from Meridian Station when Yuki made her discovery. She'd been analyzing the data they'd collected during their escape, looking for intelligence that might be useful in future operations. Jenna, she called, her voice puzzled. You need to see this. The holographic display showed technical specifications for something that looked like a weapon, but not like any weapon Jenna had ever seen. The energy signatures were off the charts, and the design principles seemed to violate several laws of physics. What am I looking at? Jenna asked. I'm not sure, Yuki replied. But I pulled this from the Dominion's classified database while we were making our exit. It's called Project Nemesis, and according to these files, it's designed specifically to counter human tactical advantages. Crix's secondary eyes focused on the display. Counter human advantages? What does that mean? It means, Zara said quietly, that someone in the Dominion has been studying us, learning how we think, how we fight, how we survive impossible odds. Jenna stared at the technical specifications, her mind racing through implications. They're building something to stop us. All of us. The question is, Marcus said, joining them in the cargo hold, what do we do about it? Jenna looked around at her crew. These impossible people who had just proven that humans could accomplish anything if they were stubborn enough. We do what humans do best. We find a way to turn their own weapon against them. That sounds like the beginning of another job, Crix observed. The most dangerous job we have ever taken, Zara added. The kind that will probably get us all killed, Yuki said. Perfect, Jenna replied, her smile sharp as a blade. Sounds like our kind of job. The broken promise continued through hyperspace, carrying its crew toward whatever impossible challenge awaited them next. Behind them, Meridian Station continued its patrol of the galaxy, its security forces still trying to figure out exactly how 4 criminals had managed to infiltrate their impenetrable fortress in the depths of the station. In laboratories hidden from casual observation, work continued on Project Nemesis, the weapon designed to end humanity's annoying habit of surviving the impossible. But the scientists and engineers working on the project had made one crucial error in their calculations. They had assumed that humans could be stopped by superior technology and overwhelming force. They had failed to account for the most dangerous human characteristic of all, the one that had carried the species from primitive caves to the stars themselves. Humans, when faced with impossible odds, don't surrender. They get creative, and creativity, as the Dominion was about to learn, was humanity's most dangerous weapon. The war for the galaxy was about to begin, and it would be fought not with massive fleets or planet-killing weapons, but with the kind of stubborn ingenuity that could turn a routine rescue mission into the heist of the century. 2 weeks later, they were sitting in a cantina on Freeport Station, nursing drinks that could strip paint and planning their next impossible venture. The rescue of Zara had been successful, but the discovery of Project Nemesis had opened a door they couldn't close. So let me get this straight, Marcus said, swirling his drink thoughtfully. The Dominion is building a weapon specifically designed to counter human unpredictability, and our response is to do something even more unpredictable. Exactly, Jenna replied. It's like they don't know us at all. Yuki had spent the last 2 weeks analyzing the Project Nemesis data, and her findings were both fascinating and terrifying. The weapon uses predictive algorithms based on human behavioral patterns. It's designed to anticipate our tactical decisions and counter them before we even make them. That's actually impressive, Crix admitted. Terrifying, but impressive. The problem is, Zara said, leaning back at her chair, they're trying to predict the unpredictable. It's like trying to solve an equation where the variables keep changing the rules. A new voice interrupted their conversation. Mind if I join you? They turned to see a tall woman with silver hair and the kind of scars that suggested she'd survived encounters that should have killed her. She wore the uniform of a retired military officer, but her eyes held the sharp intelligence of someone who'd never really left the war behind. "Commander Alexis Kane," she said, settling into an empty chair without waiting for permission. "Former Terran Defense Corps, current pain in the Dominion's collective backside." Jenna's hand moved instinctively toward her weapon. "How did you find us?" "I have been tracking your activities since the Meridian Station incident," Kane replied calmly. "Very impressive work, by the way. The Dominion is still trying to figure out how 4 people managed to infiltrate their most secure facility. For people with excellent timing and questionable judgment," Marcus corrected. "Don't forget the questionable judgment." Kane smiled. "That's exactly why I'm here. The Resistance needs people with questionable judgment. Sane people don't win wars against impossible odds." "The Resistance?" Crix's mandibles clicked with interest. "I thought that was just a rumor." "The best organizations usually are," Kane replied. "We have been operating in the shadows for years, gathering intelligence, disrupting Dominion operations, and generally making their lives difficult. But Project Nemesis changes everything." She pulled out a small device that projected a holographic display. The image showed a massive construction site in deep space, surrounded by defensive platforms and construction vessels. "This is the Nemesis facility," Kane explained. "The Dominion is building it in the void sector, far from any inhabited systems. When it's operational, it will be able to predict and counter human tactical decisions across multiple star systems simultaneously." "That's a big claim," Jenna said skeptically. "How do we know this isn't just Dominion propaganda designed to scare us?" Kane's expression grew grim. "Because 3 days ago, they tested it on a human colony world. The defenders were using standard guerrilla tactics, the kind that have worked against the Dominion for decades. The weapon predicted every move, countered every strategy, and neutralized the entire resistance in less than 6 hours." The table fell silent. Even in the noisy cantina, their corners seemed to have become an island of stunned quiet. 12,000 people, Kane continued. "Gone. Not killed, just neutralized. The weapon doesn't destroy. It simply makes resistance impossible." Zara set down her drink with a sharp click. "So what's the plan?" "Please tell me there's a plan that involves blowing something up." "There is," Kane replied. "But it's not what you'd expect. We're not going to destroy the weapon. We are going to steal it." Marcus choked on his drink. "Steal it?" "The entire facility." "Not the facility," Kane said. "The core processing unit. It's a quantum computer the size of a small building. But if we can extract the central matrix, we can turn their own weapon against them." Yuki leaned forward, her eyes bright with interest. "You want to hack into a weapon designed to predict human behavior and use it to make our own behavior unpredictable?" "More than that," Kane replied. "We want to feed it false data, corrupt its algorithms, and turn it into a weapon that makes the Dominion's forces predictable to us." Crix's secondary eyes widened. "That's either brilliant or completely insane." "With our track record," Jenna said, "it's probably both." "What's the catch?" Kane's smile was sharp as a blade. "The facility is protected by the entire 7th Fleet, has automated defenses that make Meridian Station look like a child's toy, and is scheduled to go fully operational in 72 hours. 72 hours. Marcus calculated quickly. That's not enough time to plan a proper heist. We usually spend at least a week coming up with ways to not get ourselves killed, which is why," Kane said, "we are going to do something the Dominion will never predict. We are going to wing it." The planning session lasted exactly 6 hours, which was either a new record for efficiency or a sign that they were all losing their minds. The Nemesis facility was located in a region of space that was essentially a gravitational nightmare, surrounded by black holes, neutron stars, and other phenomena that made navigation nearly impossible. "The good news," Yuki said, studying the stellar cartography data, "is that the same gravitational anomalies that make the facility hard to reach also make it difficult to scan. We can get close without being detected." "The bad news?" Jenna asked. "Getting close without being crushed into a singularity requires the kind of piloting skills that exist only in theoretical textbooks and Marcus's imagination." Marcus grinned. I prefer to think of it as an opportunity to expand my resume. Kane had brought additional resources to their operation. The Resistance, it turned out, had been preparing for something like this for years. They had ships, weapons, and most importantly, intelligence on the facility's layout and defenses. The central matrix is located in the facility's core, Kane explained, pointing to the holographic blueprint. It's protected by 17 different security systems, each one more lethal than the last. But there's a weakness. There's always a weakness, Zara said. The trick is surviving long enough to exploit it. The facility's power grid, Kane continued. The quantum computer requires massive amounts of energy to operate. If we can overload the power systems, we will have a window of maybe 10 minutes when the security systems are offline. 10 minutes to penetrate 17 security layers and extract a quantum computer the size of a building, Crix observed. That seems optimistic. Optimism is all we have, Jenna replied. That, and an unreasonable willingness to attempt the impossible. The approach to the Nemesis facility was a masterpiece of controlled terror. Marcus piloted their ship, now upgraded with resistance technology, through a maze of gravitational fields that would have torn apart most vessels. The broken promise groaned and shuddered, but held together through sheer determination and superior engineering. Facility in sight, Marcus announced, and it's every bit as terrifying as advertised. The Nemesis facility hung in space like a mechanical moon, its surface bristling with weapons and sensors. Defensive platforms orbited at precise intervals, their movements coordinated by the same quantum intelligence they were trying to steal. 7 capital ships, Yuki reported, reading their scanner displays. 43 patrol vessels and defensive platforms armed with weapons I don't even have names for. The 7th Fleet, Kane confirmed. The Dominion's most elite naval force. They are not taking any chances. The infiltration began with Yuki's electronic warfare suite, a collection of devices that looked like they'd been assembled by a genius with access to military-grade components and too much caffeine. She launched a coordinated cyber attack on the facility's communication systems, creating gaps in their sensor coverage. "I've got you a 20-minute window," she announced. After that, they will adapt their countermeasures and things will become significantly more difficult. They approached the facility through the sensor blind spots, using gravitational shadows to mask their presence. The broken promise moved like a ghost through the defensive perimeter, her hull barely registering on the facility's passive sensors. "Docking Bay 7, Marcus said, guiding them toward a maintenance access port. Just like old times. The facility's interior was a study in functional brutality. Everything was designed for efficiency, with no consideration for comfort or aesthetics. They moved through corridors that hummed with barely contained energy, following blueprints that Kane's intelligence sources had provided. Power Grid Control Center. Kane pointed to a heavily secured door. "That's our first target." The security systems protecting the power grid were exactly as lethal as advertised. Automated turrets, energy barriers, and patrol drones created a maze of death that would have stopped most infiltration attempts. But they weren't most infiltrators. Zara's explosive charges cleared a path through the energy barriers while Jenna's military precision neutralized the patrol drones. Crix's predator instincts kept them ahead of the automated tracking systems, and Marcus's piloting skills had somehow translated into an uncanny ability to dodge weapons fire in confined spaces. "Power grid accessed," Yuki announced, her fingers dancing across control panels that looked like they'd been designed by alien engineers with a fondness for unnecessary complexity. Initiating overload sequence. The facility's lights flickered as power systems throughout the complex began to fail. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in hellish red, and alarms began wailing with mechanical urgency. "Security systems are down," Kane confirmed. "We have our window. Move." They raced through corridors that were rapidly filling with confused Dominion personnel. The power outage had disabled most of the facility's automated systems, but human guards were still a threat. Central Matrix Chamber. Jenna pointed to a massive door marked with symbols that probably meant something like authorized personnel only or touch this and die horribly. "That's our target." The chamber beyond was a cathedral of technology, filled with quantum processors that hummed with computational power. At the center, the central matrix rose like a technological altar, its crystalline structure pulsing with data streams. There, Kane said, pointing to a component that looked like it had been carved from living light. That's the core processing unit. Everything else is just supporting hardware. Yuki approached the matrix with the reverence of someone who understood the technology she was looking at. This is incredible. They have created a quantum computer that can process probability matrices across multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Can you extract it? Jenna asked, checking her chronometer. We are running out of time. I can try, Yuki replied, connecting her equipment to the matrix's access ports. But this is like trying to perform surgery on a living mind. One wrong move, and the whole system could collapse. The extraction process took exactly 8 minutes and 37 seconds. Jenna knew because she was still counting, even as Dominion security forces converged on their position. The central processing unit came free with a sound like breaking glass, its crystalline structure flickering with residual data. Got it, Yuki announced, securing the device in a specialized containment field. But I should warn you that removing the core has probably triggered every security protocol in the facility. As if summoned by her words, the chamber's doors burst open to reveal Dominion shock troopers in full battle armor. Behind them, the facility's backup power systems came online, restoring full functionality to the security systems. Well, Marcus said, checking his weapons, that's not good. The battle for the central matrix chamber was fierce and brief. The Dominion troopers were skilled and well-equipped, but they were fighting humans who had spent years perfecting the art of surviving impossible odds. When the smoke cleared, the path to the exit was open. Everyone move, Jenna shouted, leading the retreat through corridors that were rapidly filling with hostile forces. Back to the ship. The journey to the docking bay was a running battle through a facility that had suddenly become very crowded with people who want to kill them. They moved through the complex like a force of nature, leaving chaos and confused enemies in their wake. Docking bay in sight, Marcus announced, even as plasma fire turned the air around them into superheated death. Promise is ready for immediate departure. They tumbled through the airlock as the facility's defensive systems finally acquired target locks on their position. The broken Promise pulled away from the Nemesis facility just as automated turrets began tracking their movement. Hyperspace, Marcus announced. Everyone hold on. The stars stretched into lines of light as they jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Nemesis facility and its confused defenders behind. In the cargo hold, Yuki carefully examined the stolen processing unit. It's still active, she reported. The quantum matrix is intact, and I'm detecting massive amounts of encrypted data. Can you decrypt it? Kane asked. Given enough time, Yuki replied. But this isn't just a weapon. It's a complete intelligence database. Everything the Dominion knows about human tactics, psychology, and strategic thinking. Jenna stared at the device, her mind racing through implications. They have been studying us for years, learning everything about how we think and fight. Which means, Zara said, we now have everything they know about us. And more importantly, we know what they think they know. Crix's mandibles clicked with amusement. Information warfare. Very human. 6 months later, the war had turned. The stolen Nemesis technology had been reverse engineered and distributed to resistance cells across the galaxy. Dominion forces, accustomed to technological superiority, suddenly found themselves facing enemies who could predict their every move. Human colonies that had been under Dominion control for decades began to rebel. Trade routes that had been secure for centuries became hunting grounds for human pirates and privateers. The galaxy's most powerful empire discovered that their greatest weakness was their own predictability. Jenna and her crew had become legends, their names whispered in cantinas and celebrated in underground broadcasts. The Meridian heist had been impressive, but the Nemesis raid had changed everything. So, Marcus said, settling into his pilot's seat as they prepared for their next mission, what's the plan now? Jenna looked around at her crew, these impossible people who had turned a simple rescue mission into a war for the galaxy's freedom. We do what humans do best. We find the next impossible thing and make it possible. That sounds like the beginning of another adventure, Crix observed. The most dangerous adventure we have ever attempted, Zara added. The kind that will definitely get us all killed, Yuki said. Perfect, Jenna replied, her smile sharp as starlight. Let's go save the galaxy. The Broken Promise leaped into hyperspace, carrying its crew toward whatever impossible challenge awaited them next. Behind them, across the galaxy, the fires of rebellion burned brighter with each passing day. The humans were no longer just surviving. They were winning, and they were bringing their sense of humor to a war that the Dominion had thought they'd already won. The universe would never be the same.